Will we find out a little bit more about what's going to happen at Eskom after the promises made during the State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa? Good afternoon. It's very sunny. It's very warm here in Cape Town, but later, as the sun goes down, will lights go out or will they come on? Still, we're a nation in stage 6 load shedding. Many hopes, many dreams. I think also a lot of cynicism around this budget because of the difficult situation that we're in. Well, let's get a view now on what we can expect. Phelisa Nkomo is the CEO of the Gender Commission, the Commission for Gender Equality. She's also a development economist. She joins us now. Phelisa, good afternoon to you, and thanks very much indeed for your time. I would like to start off by saying, what do you want from this budget? We all have a long list of what we want, so let me put the question differently. Do you think you'll get any of it?
I'm not really sure, by the way, because I think the women of South Africa are expecting a lot more from the budget. And I suppose the minister has to really do a lot of juggling. I think you've mentioned the point about the fact that all of us goes into the dark almost every day.
Yeah.
So, and I suppose the issue of energy is actually going to be a priority. I suppose women do require energy services as well as a priority. But there are several things that women of South Africa require. I think the first one is that they're looking for a much more pro-poor budget, but not in a form of social grant. And I just want to really make an emphasis on this one. They really want to hear that the minister has a handle over the macroeconomic management issues, which amongst those should be creating decent jobs for South Africans, but also two, that he's able to use different policy levers under his watch, in this context government watch, to make it sure that they actually create business opportunities for women, in this context using public procurement as a policy lever to facilitate growth but as well as stimulate the economy. And obviously the third component, of course, is to really make it sure that they use, because we currently know that we are spending about 59.2% on social spending on different areas, that they use that in a way that it actually benefits South Africans. So for instance, I'm going to make an example. I mean, there's a massive opportunity around supporting social entrepreneurs, right? Social entrepreneurs who have business ideas that have commercial values in communities. So I do think that amongst the fourth issue that people are really looking for is that what is it that the minister is going to be doing to actually stimulate and build a vibrant economy? We know, for example, in South Africa, black women, 42%, rely on social security. They're unemployed. Young people, 66%, they're actually doing absolutely nothing. They're economically and socially disengaged. So there's a massive issue. And what is it that is going to do around food insecurity? South Africa, for example, is a food secure country, but households are actually insecure.
Doesn't all of this point to one of the harsh realities of our country, which is that so many of our problems, the economic problems, are gendered? So if it comes to social grants, it's women who receive the social grants because they're caring for children. Mm-hmm. If there's electricity and if it's dark outside, women are more in danger because of gender-based violence, or just walking to the toilet in an informal settlement just down the road from where we are now. When it comes to trying to start a business, we know that women, and particularly black women, are more disadvantaged, discriminated against, maybe a better phrase. So this points to the sort of gender dynamics of our society.
No, I mean, absolutely. And I think government, one way or the other, they're trying to do certain things. I mean, part of it as well, they will argue that the social grants transfers, that's why they're targeting women, is particularly they know the role of women at household level as well as communities. But that's really not sufficient, by the way, right, to create a safety net. That's why. So but also you also don't want to invest in society where citizens rely on social security. In fact, if you even look at women who are in the informal sector, by the way, and that's why, for instance, a lot of heterodox economics like us, we actually don't even agree to the notion that our unemployment is just below 35%. We're of the view that, in fact, not only COVID has amplified social inequality, but also the global inflation that we're confronted with is actually pushing women even in a much more worse position. Firstly, those who are in the informal sector will have to actually refrigerate most of their products. From meat to fresh produce, it means that they can't do that. It means that the following day, everything else is perishable, and that they've actually lost money because they don't have capital to actually access even infrastructure, but also refrigeration services. And let alone the fact that they won't even have access to microfinance institutions. Now, let's make the link between what the president had announced during the State of the Nation. So he's saying, I'm giving 1.4 billion to CIFA, right? Of course, in numbers, it looks a lot. But I mean, if you're sitting with so much informal sector, for instance, that's one that does not get social security or no support. Women, for example, are trading in open spaces with absolute no support. You know, my rural town is actually Butterworth. So every time I go home, I land in East London, so I go home. I mean, there are women, Stephen, who have been actually in an informal sector en route N2 for the last 19 years. I stop every day. So they sell vegetables which they come straight from their own gardens, right? There is no shelter, there are no abolition facilities, and interestingly, even from a gender perspective, that's when you see that when the patriarchal system is embedded in public governance, the interests of women actually are kind of like not considered. Even ourselves, by the way, as Gender Commission, even though we're a Chapter 9 institution, you won't believe that our budget is just 100 million. With the type of work, with the type of work that we actually have to do, and making sure that we do the monitoring and look at different policies. We've just now, for example, completed the study on 40% procurement, which was actually announced by President, I think 2.5 years ago. Let me tell you, and this is where you see patriarchal system that is embedded in public governance, is that you've not even seen that actually Treasury has been issuing what is called instruction note to compel public sector to actually meet the 40%. So consistently, so when we're collecting data, we actually picked up that, you know, departments and municipalities were saying, we've actually not been instructed to comply with this policy. So in essence, Israeli are going to rely on our own benevolence, political benevolence, for us to actually deliver on this. So I think the minister in his own juggling, I mean, I know ESCOM is a massive issue, but ESCOM is an issue on a number of things that have really been coming up that have not been dealt with. By the way, you know, unemployment, poverty, inequality, income inequality is such a moving target when we are not dealing with it. And let me make even the last point and say, as long as if the minister today allocates less than 7 or even 8% of its own spending towards industrial development, then we must know that we are still going to be exactly in the same position.
So this is one of the things that we need to look at, and there are lots of different elements to it. But one point I would sort of like to make is that despite what's been a major change in our society on the issue of gender and women, and also how we understand gender, which is a completely different conversation, we'll come back to that. I always remember in 1994, before the election, there was one woman in the last apartheid cabinet. She was the Minister of Health. Now, immediately it changed, and changed very dramatically. Still, I think it's less than 40% of children are growing up in homes with two parents. And I'm almost certain that 99.9% of those 60 children, 60%, are growing up in homes that are led by women.
Absolutely.
And so this is where the real discrimination comes. The root of it is in that problem.
In fact, it then transfers into both private homes, for example, how women and grandparents, by the way, have to carry the responsibility of nurturing and raising children, and actually remain anchors in communities, because ultimately when there are multiple of them, it means that they're providing leadership, social leadership in communities. Obviously, of course, the second issue is that it's actually them who have to economically migrate, leave, actually, the young mothers, leave their children with grandparents to go and look for opportunities in the cities. Because historically we know that people who would be part of economic migration is men, but women are also joining. And I think as well, as long again you don't build what you call rural enterprises that are vibrant, that can keep women in communities where they want to be and raise their children as well as appropriately. There's even something else, Stephen, that is implicit in what you're asking, is the issue around the land question. You know, in South Africa, 34% of women have access to land. And now it's the point you're making is saying women are in leadership position. So one would assume that when women are in leadership position, right, actually women should actually be benefiting in society, because naturally it means that they have people who have their interest at heart, who are sitting in position of power. And I'm not going to dwell on the caliber of women that get elected. I don't think that's really my space, but I do think that there is something within our political system that is a bit of tokenism that takes women, and sometimes you don't see that kind of like gender justice agenda that is actually being pursued. In fact, in one of our Commission on Gender Equality research we've undertaken now from multi-parties around, it's called gains made and gained losses. So we've kind of like tracked in terms of the number, particularly during the local government elections. The nutshell of it is that women's representation have actually reduced.
Yes.
Of course, what we must celebrate is that there are younger women who are part of the system, but also most of them don't have a very strong technical expertise to really pursue their, public representation role, but also they are less in numbers, right? And what also that means is that the signal that it sends is that actually when the economy is actually not doing well, okay, and what happens is that women get pushed back and then men take up position of leadership, because part of it is that they actually see it as an opportunity for an income. But there's something else as well we need to really evaluate in that. You must see the state of municipalities and the fact that more often women are given positions of leadership without being prepared. In the feminist world, we call that harmful inclusion. We've experienced a lot of that. Women get leadership position when they're not prepared, but also all women are expected to lead when it's crisis time.
Yes.
And then so that they are subjected into actually immense pressure. I know I digress. This is not about budget speech, but it's actually quite an important issue around the engendered approach.
They're all related. They're all related to each other. I mean, this is the point. Phelisa Nkomo is the CEO of the Commission for Gender Equality. More from her, more guests as well, more experts ahead of the budget, which will now start in 46 minutes from now. More to come.